current president of Artists at Work, which is a chamber partner. So without further ado, we will get started, and Dan will assist us this evening.
Thanks, Kara. So tonight we have 4 candidates, 2 from 5th Ward and 2 from 4th Ward. And we're going to begin with each of them giving a 30-second introduction. And then following that, we have 7 questions that we're going to ask, and we'll do that in a round-robin format. And they've all been given the questions. So we're going to start our introductions first with Dave Parker from 5th Ward.
I'm Dave Parker, your city council rep for the 5th Ward, one of the 2. I've worked in Elkins for a lot of years, really to build up this town because it's my home and it's my family's home. And we're just deeply grateful that it is. I want to encourage you all to look at the Intermountain for the election coverage that they did, the piece that has the candidate information in it, for more, to get a better sense of who I am and what I've been up to for all these years that I've been back here. But I will say that I've served you conscientiously, I can honestly say that, during the years that I've been on council. And I would be very honored to serve you all for one more term. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Burley Woods, also from 5th Ward.
Yes, my name is Burley Woods. I am a native of Elkins. I was born and raised here, went to elementary school all the way through high school. After graduation, I joined the U.S. military, and I've traveled the world. And I've seen what the world has to offer. When I had the ability to move back to Elkins with my current position, I elected to do so, because I thought moving back here would be a great place to raise a family. I have a 2-year-old son, and I feel this city is a place where he can thrive. Although we do have challenges throughout their city, I think City Council has taken steps to improve our city, but I think there's a lot of work that we still have to do. With my background in management, with logistics, and hiring and training, I think I would bring a lot to Elkins City Council. When I ran against Dave Parker 4 years ago, people thought I was going to go away, but I didn't. What did I do? I joined and become part of the Planning Commission and serve with many people throughout the community that want to see a difference and are striving to make differences in our community. We also founded a nonprofit that does fundraising for our community to make sure that our community citizens have access to services they normally would not have without that. I would love to have your support as a representative for 5th Ward.
Thank you, Burley. And from 4th Ward, Nancy Bross Frigonera.
I would like to echo what Dave said. The coverage with the Intermountain, with the voter information was excellent, and it had a huge part about my biography. Basically, I've been here for 26 years. I've served on council for half of that period. And I think that the city has made an amazing bunch of changes in those 12 years. They've had dips and they've had upward movement. It's been wonderful. But the thing that was most important to me to share is during my campaigning, I probably put thousands of steps in doing canvassing. And just being able to listen to what my constituents are concerned about, what they're excited about, was so important to me. And I spent hours walking the streets and listening to what was important to them. And that's what I love about being on City Council, is it's the one place we don't have a lot of control on a lot of things that are happening in the world and the country and even our state. But we can make a difference in our own communities, and that's why I would love the opportunity to continue on council. And I would like to thank the Chamber for having this event, and also to Phillips Colson for streaming this, because one of the t-shirts that I have is that you register to vote, they form, and then you vote. Those are the three things that are really important for every citizen to do. So thank you all so much.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And our last candidate, also from 4th Ward, John Klingerman.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Klingerman, 4th Ward resident now for about 10 years, born and raised in Elkins. Shortly after high school, joined the Marine Corps, did a little bit of time there, and ultimately came back home. California is a little bit different than it is in Elkins, West Virginia. I missed home, so I came back. I am a husband, a father, educator, and also a woodworker and a tradesman. I teach the vocational program, millwork and cabinet making at the Randolph Technical Center. First and foremost, I am not a politician, but I am someone who believes that our city and ward deserve equal representation. I'm ultimately running for city council to be a voice for the people, to bring fairness, transparency, and common sense leadership to our local government. Unfortunately, during my time in 4th Ward, I have seen what it looks like for neighborhoods to feel overlooked, and I feel that stepping up right now is the best thing for me to ensure that our ward is not forgotten. I am ready to serve, listen, and fight for real progress, and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you to all 4 of you. So our process will go like this. I will ask one of the questions in order from 1 to 7. The first question will start with Dave, and then each of the other 3 individuals have a chance to answer first question. Then the second question will rotate, start with Burley, and so on and so forth. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. With about 30 seconds left, Kara will hold up a sign that gives a warning of 30 seconds. And when your 2 minutes has expired, she will hold up a second sign that says time is up. I will let you finish your thought. I promise I will not interrupt you. Once you're finished with your thought, I will thank you and move on to the next candidate for their response. Does that all make sense to everybody? Fantastic. At the end of the question time, we'll have what's called a candidate speed dating round, where all of you in the audience physically will have a chance to meet and greet each of the candidates individually. So we'll begin with the first question to Dave, and then we'll move right down the row on the first question. What is your vision for Elkins over the next 4 years, and what specific steps will you take to achieve it?
I want to preface this by saying that rather than ad lib a lot of this, I've written it down. I've tried to keep it within the time constraints that have been requested for this, and I respect that a lot. My vision for the next 4 years. In 2024, the City Council approved and published a strategic plan, and that is the guiding vision for the next 4 years now, at this point. It's our working vision, and we have put that together as a team. Everybody brought their hopes, their concerns, their thoughts to that process. And they were refined, we worked on it hard, put that together, and that became the strategic plan. That plan is reviewed and checked for progress on a very regular basis by council. It has been in the past years, and it is with this current strategic plan. The plan is on the city website, and you can find it very easily, along with the comprehensive plan, a new one of which is in the works right now, in fact. An important point, I think, to consider for all of us who seek to serve on council and for our citizens as well, is this. The duties and the authorities to carry those duties out are in the charter, the city charter. And that kind of proscribes the parameters within which we can work. It says we can do this with alleys, we can do this about trash, those sorts of things. It's really not a Lone Ranger operation where Dave can go on the city council with my agenda, determined to be right, and just kind of like, I'm heading my way, or come hell or high water. It really is a team thing. And short of,
keeps going. Part of the question was, what specific steps will you take to achieve it? And I just came back from an extraordinarily wonderful meeting with the Chamber Group. That's all about, we're excited that we can live here, is sort of the theme of this group. And it's a group of people that are really willing to actually do something rather than just sit and talk. And that a lot of times we get bogged down with strategic planning and things along those lines, but you also need to plant the tree. You also need to paint the sidewalk. You also need to really commit to doing something, and sometimes that includes fundraising, making people excited about the progress that we're doing. And if we can do a few things that will show our residents what we are able to do, whether it be city council or the chamber groups, whatever, we are going to get a surge of other people involved as well. And I think that's very important for this city.
Great, thank you. And John?
I had to write some of these down.
That's fine.
So I have a 2-year-old son, and ultimately the vision that I have is I want this to be a place that people want to return to, ultimately. And I want to make it a place that our children are not burdened with the same issues that we see today as well. That is my vision. Now, the specific steps that I would like to take to address this would be infrastructure first. We can't afford any short-term fixes anymore. We are starting to see burdens now that were short-term fixes years ago, and now they are big problems. And now money is short just about everywhere. We have to advocate for grant funding, and I know we're doing that right now, but that needs to continue for sure. And ultimately, communicate with state, local, and even federal officials for help if need be. I want to help support existing businesses. And I think before we bring in new business, we have to make sure that our current businesses are feeling valued and that they're taken care of. We need to understand their challenges and advocate for solutions. Next, I want to help empower city employees. Are they feeling valued? Are they receiving competitive pay? You know, ultimately to keep them, we have to make sure that we're keeping them. And I would like to see a lot more like recognition programs for our employees too. I think that's a very vital asset to retaining employees is, again, are they feeling valued? Ultimately, I want to make Elkins a place to come back to. I think now, above all, is the time that we need to engage our youth, because ultimately they're going to be the ones taking over. In the grand scheme of things, this is not about doing one thing, it's about doing multiple things right. And making sure that every decision that we make is going to move Elkins forward.
Great. Thank you to all four of you for that. Our second question, Burley, we'll begin with you on this one. What should Elkins be doing to attract new businesses and retain existing ones?
Well, as John was speaking about, we need to support businesses that we currently have. We need to have steps in place that's going to market not only to the citizens of Elkins, but also externally to bring that business into Elkins. We need to continue to develop the industrial park and other areas where we can grow businesses. We need to continue to build on what Mayor Marco has already started, bringing or soliciting large companies to come into our area. What we have so far in place, the Riverwalk, the streetscape processes or development plans, like Nancy said, the center that's coming here, these are all positive changes. As we continue to grow, those businesses are going to look at Elkins and they're going to look to leadership to see what they're doing to incentivize them coming and staying in Elkins.
Great, thank you. And I want to add, if any of you need me to repeat the question, I'm happy to do that. Nancy, we'll go to you on question 2.
Okay. I think that a lot of things have already been said. One of the challenges that we have is the fact that Main Street is no longer in the city of Elkins. And part of this question is attracting new businesses and retaining existing ones. And they played a huge role in doing that. And I think the vacuum is being filled by what the chamber is doing right now. We're also doing a survey of downtown business owners and property owners to see what kind of organization can really help them, what are their needs, because without hearing from them, we can come up with these ideas, but it's much better to have the input coming from them since they're the boots on the ground. Increasing educational opportunities. The Chamber has done super promotional assistance kind of programming to help small businesses. And that even the city wants to piggyback on that and provide ways that you can have a workshop on doing business in Elkins. How do you start a business? How do you keep doing that business? Having somebody come in and help you with your marketing strategy and help you with your displays and your storefront and things along those lines. So those kind of educational opportunities are huge. The city council needs to really think about strategies that will allow businesses to do business. And one of the things on the planning commission that we were very cognizant of is making sure that the zoning was appropriate for businesses in the neighborhoods that they may be in or downtown. So we will be continuing to revisit those important ordinances and making sure that they are very compatible with creating and encouraging business.
Thanks. John, question number 2.
I completely agree with what's already been said, for sure. Kind of go back to what I said previously too, is, are our business owners feeling valued? Talking to them, because ultimately, in a leadership role, typically your, I should say, like subordinates or whatever, are the ones that do the work every day. So they understand how things are working. So input is very valuable in regards to that. And ultimately, if we value our current business owners and somebody else wanted to come in, ultimately they're probably going to shop at other places and ask those owners, like, what is it like here? What is the environment like? And ultimately, if it's positive, it's going to help draw in new business. And that would be something huge. Another item would be, again, infrastructure. Is our infrastructure current? Is it up to date? Are things going to keep failing? Because if they are, that's ultimately going to keep people out. And I think that would be big. And Burley mentioned about the industrial park. And I come from wood manufacturing management. And it's amazing that we only have X amount of wood manufacturers in this area. It should be more, because wood around here is a very valuable asset, especially to us. And it would be awesome to bring in more businesses into the industrial park, and yeah, I'm here for it.
Great. Thanks, John. And Dave, last candidate for this question.
I don't want to, as John said, I don't want to repeat everything everybody else said. Folks have made some good points.
Good stuff.
I think in terms of attracting and retaining, it's the climate we create. And that climate has a lot of components. One of the first ones, and the single biggest responsibility that we have as a city is public safety. That is our single biggest line item in the budget, and it should be. And EPD is doing, and the fire department as well, doing a great job with that. And, like right now we have, through grants, the street cameras are going up even now as we meet. And that is a significant step forward in terms of public safety here. And that's just one example. But Chief Bennett does a great job, is a stickler for training and preparation. And so we've made some great strides in that regard. Our personnel are really well trained and continuing to be so. We are engaged in continuing with upgrades to our streets, our water system, sanitary sewer system, any number of things. And that kind of work is a very high priority. It's the infrastructure everybody's talking about in one way or another. Beautification of the downtown is another significant element. We're making good progress with that. We work to improve the environment in which businesses operate in this city. Within the limits of our authority, our city staff will work with prospective business owners, current business owners, to answer questions and work out issues. I was going to say, I was checking to see if I was running out of time. Uh-oh, my time is up. Okay. But we do respond to business owner concerns. That's what I want to tell you. The staff do that really well. And thank you.
Thank you. Question number 3, and Nancy, we'll begin with you on this question. Staying on the theme with small businesses, how would you support small businesses and entrepreneurs in our community?
Okay, I think, gosh, so many of these things have already been mentioned, and I even mentioned some of these with the other question. So the way that I am doing this as a citizen and as a representative of city council on this chamber group is to really be there to let people know, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to do this with the city. And just be there to make sure that collaboration takes place between the private sector and what city council is able to do, what the city administrators, they are amazing. Just like what Dave said, they will bend over backwards to make sure you know exactly what you need to do business in town. And our code enforcement officer will make sure you're doing it in the correct way. I think things are in very, very good shape as far as supporting small businesses, but there's still things that can be done, and I'm excited about organizing a group of downtown business owners so that we will have a place that the city can go to and other nonprofits can go to find out what will really make a difference to the downtown business owners. Because right now there's been several organizations kind of working in silos and not communicating. We had that happen at our meeting today. We didn't know that X person was doing what we were thinking about doing. And so that is probably the first thing that needs to happen, is the creation of a downtown business association.
Great, thank you. And John, same question, number 3.
Yeah, so like Nancy said, there are some current processes in place to support local business, like the Chamber, Woodlands Development Group. I know when I first started my business, Woodlands pretty much helped me throughout the whole process. And I know Lisa, when she was over the Chamber too, I know I had multiple conversations with her. And it was very supportive and uplifting, especially for somebody not knowing how to run a business. Of course, some examples are hard. But another thing, and this is probably a controversial topic, but I'm going to talk about B&O tax real quick. So one thing for a business, especially for me, was a hard concept to start to understand was, what is B&O tax and how is it used? And I think as a business owner, when I first started out, there wasn't a whole lot, because it was kind of new at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of answers there. How is this money going to be used? What, as a business owner, if it's ultimately sales from me, I think I should have a stake in saying, what is this being used for? Is it being used to upgrade infrastructure for more business to come in? Ultimately, it took some time to kind of realize where that money was going to be used. But I think above and beyond that, I think communication and that aspect for business owners and current business owners, and especially growth, bringing in new people, I think communication is a very big aspect. If they know what it's going for and it's going for a good thing, I think a lot of people will come in. But ultimately, is that communication available?
Great.
And how can we move forward with it?
Thank you. Dave, question number 3.
Yes, sir. Small businesses and entrepreneurs. I think first thing we do is we patronize their businesses ourselves. That's number one.
Yeah.
And number two is that we encourage our friends and other community members to do the same. And we have a chance to do that through social media, through personal contacts, and we really need to be about that piece of business. I think that's first. Number two, in the questions above, we talked about infrastructure a lot, and I think rightly so. That makes it possible for people to work without limits being placed on them by infrastructure problems. Colin McFadden and I have talked about his intention to put a sprinkler system in his building. We've got to have a certain size water line to supply suitable pressure for that sprinkler system. It's going to require an infrastructure improvement to do that, and maybe two. I think that's a big piece. Municipal Properties Committee, on which I sit, which Councilor Fregonara chairs, has an important role in this work when it comes to everything that's not the water and sewer plant and related plumbing. And John was talking about communication. I agree, John. I think it's essential. That's one reason that the city website has all the council reps' names. I think there's photographs too. Last I looked, I wanted mine replaced. It's terrible. Our phone numbers and our emails. We're easy to get. The city staff, same way. They're all right there. They're easy to reach. If somebody has questions, they need to reach out. That really is important. And there, I will stop and thank you.
Wonderful. And Burley, last candidate for question number 3.
Well, I think about being the last person to go, it's already, everything's been talked about. But to support small business and entrepreneurs is exactly like everybody said. We have to visit their establishments. We have to support them. When we talk about supporting them, it can't be just the 3 weeks before election. There are people that don't know who our city councilmen are. I've gone out to local businesses and said I was running, and they're like, who are you running against? Who are they? Who else is running? Even though the city does a phenomenal job at social media, it's truly boots on the ground. It's going out. It's not only, like I said, the weeks and the months leading up to election. It's going out to when there's a fundraiser happening, or when there's a special event, or there's a fair, or there's a carnival. We have to get in front of the public. We have to make ourselves accessible. We don't need someone to go and try to figure out how to use a system where most of our population are aging. A lot of people that I've ran into don't use computers and don't have emails. So just saying that we're accessible on the website is no longer viable. We have to be in front of the people that we support. In doing so, we're going to talk to our business owners. We're going to talk to entrepreneurs that are looking at investing in our city, and they're going to know that we're there to support them every step of the way. How are they going to know that? We're already in front of them. We're asking what they need and how we can assist in connecting them with the right people. So boots on ground is what we need to support our business owners.
Thank you. I think all 4 of you have mentioned about infrastructure, and that's what question 4 is about. And John, we're going to begin with you this time. What are your priorities for improving local infrastructure, such as roads, water, broadband access, and there may be more, so feel free to add to that list of 3 items. And John, we'll begin with you.
Sure. So I know in my ward, infrastructure is an absolute nightmare. If you ever come up Diamond Street, Weiss Street, in that general area, when it rains, normally you're driving through water. I've had the power steering on my truck have to be replaced because I had to drive through water taller than the tires on my truck, and the electronics go out very quickly. It's very frustrating. I've had to replace every utility in my basement because of floodwater that does not come from the stream that runs behind our house. It comes from the street. The biggest thing for me is fixing aging stormwater and sewer systems before they become a bigger issue. Right now, for us in Fourth Ward, I don't think it can get bigger. It is failing. In the last year alone, we have shut down Randolph Avenue twice. In the last 5 years, it's been more than 5 times. It's gotta stop. I think how we do this is, hard conversations have to happen, not only within the city, but we also have to collaborate with state officials and ultimately federal officials if we have to. I think collaboration is really the only way we're gonna get something resolved. I wanna push for a better long-term infrastructure plan. What does that look like? I know right now, Fourth Ward is not in a phase right now for stormwater separation. You know, phase 1 and phase 2 were complete. Fourth Ward was discussed a little bit, but it wasn't on a phase. It's still not on a phase, to my knowledge. This has to happen. In order to address this issue, we have got to work to get this fixed. And I think this goes for all of Fourth Ward, not just Diamond Street or Weiss Street. Ultimately, that stream is attributing to the closure of the road, but ultimately, this goes for all of Fourth Ward. What does our infrastructure look like? Are there, there's ultimately issues, but they have to be fixed.
All right, thank you. And Dave, we're going to bounce back to you for question number 4.
Question number 4. As I said, infrastructure is a very high priority. Several years ago, council formed a water board and a sanitary board. Both of those are key infrastructure components. Without the water board and the service they oversee and supervise, we're out of business. Sanitary sewer, pretty much the same thing. Those boards are formed as recommended by the state. They oversee the city water supply operations and the sanitary sewer systems. They function independently from council. They're almost completely independent. They do have a representative at council at almost every meeting, but they're independent. They have their own plans and their goals, and they've been pursuing those very actively. And we are seeing improvements. One of the things to understand about these projects, these are multi-million-dollar projects. These are not things that we can pull out of the general budget. They really aren't. It is a question of how much bond debt do we really want to have, how many grants can one find, and those grants have dried up, by the way. The mayor chairs those boards, and so he also is a conduit for us on that piece. The operations department is responsible for streets, sanitation, and city infrastructure work, which would be the storm sewers. In the Fourth Ward, your neighborhood. And work has begun on that, thankfully. So our departments support each other, and they will all work together to try to find solutions to this. As for broadband, which was specifically mentioned in the question, broadband is largely out of our hands. I worked on this some years ago when the state had no interest whatsoever. They had a tiny office in a building in Charleston. They had no funding, and they really didn't want to hear about it. The broadband initiative that's been going on now has been largely federally funded, and that money has been through the state. That money is gone. It's been cut off.
And on that cutoff note, we're going to go over to Burley, if that's okay.
All right, I, along with John, have had issues with flooding. So anything that happens in Fourth Ward filters into Fifth Ward, because that is the thoroughfare, or that is the way the water is routed to get to our river. Unfortunately, there are a lot of backups. So when one backs up, the water backs up a little further and a little further. And eventually, it goes into Fourth Ward because the water has nowhere to go. So this is no longer a water issue. This is an issue of putting our citizens at danger. Because when water mixes with sewer, it becomes a hazardous material. So as our rivers back up and our creeks back up, our sewers back up. So as we go through, it's not regular water we're going to do, it's sewage. So it's hazardous material. When we talk about roads and we talk about infrastructures, we've looked at roads, we've looked at sidewalks, and who owns them, who's going to be responsible for them. What we do is we pass the buck. We pass it from one division to another. And then this division says, I can only do this. As Nancy alluded to before, there are so many people in Elkins that are trying to make a difference. But we're all sitting in our own little circle and we're spinning. What can we do here? Just like we talk about with drug enforcement and what we can do to make our city safer. We try to bring all of these people together so as one mind, as one body, we can make a decision and move Elkins forward instead of being in these small isolated teams. So when we talk about all of these things in infrastructure, the Planning Commission and a few of us have been pushing for infrastructure to be its own topic. And it keeps getting buried. So every time we look at moving Elkins forward, we're like, well, let's put infrastructure underneath of development. It needs to come out. It needs to be a line item that City Council has the ability to say, we're going to involve infrastructure in our strategic plan going the next 10 years.
Thank you. And lastly, Nancy, for question number 4.
Okay, I think the top priority for me, and it's been said numerous times already, is fixing the situation in the Weiss and Diamond Street areas. John organized a great meeting where we had a lot of residents in the community at the meeting. We had DOH there, we had city there. It's a mess because you have multiple jurisdictions, and just like somebody had alluded to, there has been a lot of kicking the can down the street, and fortunately, our city operations manager is really keen on getting this project moving forward, and he's been able to get the DOH guys to the table, which is a miracle. And then we have to fix our own culverts, and it's a huge, huge project. Then part of the challenge not only are there jurisdictional problems, but the funding is critical, and trying to find those funds. For any city council member, the most frustrating thing is seeing these problems and not having the funds to do it. Thankfully, we're able to work with the Woodlands, and they've been able to help us with a lot of these multiple financial challenges that we have. We work with Region 7, we work with other agencies trying to put these funding packages together and making sure that we have the funds to do it and we have the collaborations to do it. So that.
Great. Thank you. I think we are on officially now the home stretch for our final 3 questions. Dave, we're going to begin with you with question number 5.
Okay?
How would you address the availability and affordability of housing within Elkins?
Okay. I'm going to preface that with a very brief response to some comments that have been made. Infrastructure has not been buried. Infrastructure is high on the priority list. It has been discussed. We're looking always for ways to fund it, to finance it. These are $100 million projects, $50 million projects, so I don't want to hear that. The availability and affordability of housing. Housing is an issue everywhere. I've strongly supported a working relationship between the city and Woodlands Development Group for years now. A study done by WVU and Virginia Tech said that the most viable approach to dealing with housing in the city of Elkins right now is not new large developments. It is it's what they call infill development. We demolish a property, they build a new home on it, or a duplex. That's just the case with this most recent one on our street. And that has really been a successful approach. That is transformative for neighborhoods, this infill development. And I think personally that we need to continue to do that. I will champion that collaboration. Are you waving a flag at me yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm just trying to be a good scout here. Anyway, I have every intention of supporting that continuing collaboration. You can look at that beautiful little home on River Street, in the space where that horrible fire occurred and 2 people died a few years ago. And then the new duplex right down the street, 2 doors down the street from me on Henry. While Woodlands can be limited in their funding sources, they also have shown great creativity in putting funding packages together to keep doing this infill development. And they've taken over some of the very troublesome fossil properties. There have been demos on those, and they're prepared to build as funding becomes available.
Thank you. And Burley, question number 5.
Yep. So I want to also preface this conversation by, you're welcome to come to any of our council meeting or the meetings for where we're talking about infrastructure where it keeps getting buried, and we're trying to pull it out so it becomes a line item and it's not a subcategory of one thing that's currently in the strategic plan. So I apologize if it hit a nerve, but we want to make it a priority, not a subcategory. Which is what
priority.
it's a subcategory of what we're currently looking at the strategic plan.
Is this the comprehensive
Yeah,
plan?
the comprehensive, I'm sorry about that. Yes, comprehensive plan. So
Yeah,
we're trying to pull that
two
out,
different
so
things.
it is ahead. So when we're talking about housing and affordability, this is not something that is city-specific to Elkins. This is nationwide. I deal with real estate on a regular basis. When we're talking about affordable housing, and we're talking about some of the housings are the dilapidated structures that are being taken down, that are being revitalized. It's amazing that our city is going through that stage where we're now, and we can only build off of it. But we're talking about affordable housing. The housing that was referred to on River Street is $179,000. Someone that lives in the city of Elkins that works a minimum wage job, even ones that pay above minimum wage, like at Walmart, can't afford to buy that house. Their job, their income doesn't support it. What do we need to do? This is a nationwide problem that everybody's trying to find out. Interest rates. Interest rates are not coming down anytime soon. If you look at buying a house, for every $100,000 that you buy, it's a $700 mortgage payment. That's if you have the 20% to put down. If not, now you're paying additional interest to somebody for a PMI. So affordable housing is something that is not going to be easily tackled. No matter how much we go through and do revitalization, it's a problem that is going to face us for years to come. You're good.
Perfect. Thank you. Nancy, question number 5, please.
All right. Again, a lot of these things have already been talked about. There are housing areas that the Woodlands Group has done. I've got to sing the praises of the Woodlands Group because it reminds me of a quote that somebody said about the person that, I'm going to blank out on the name, who created a lot of the houses down in our neighborhood and everywhere else. And they said if it weren't for this woodworker, the city of Elkins would look a lot different. And it's the same thing with the Woodlands Group, with their ability to create affordable housing, their home ownership center, assist people in being able to afford those first homes. I think part of the some of the ordinances that the city has in effect regarding making sure how rentals are registered and inspected to make sure some of these rentals are in good shape and are safe for people is very helpful. Our ordinance dealing with nuisance properties has also improved some of the properties that have been in town. So it's not just making them affordable, but it's also making them safe, clean for people as well. I think another part that we've been active with, and even with the Planning Commission when we were putting together zoning ordinances, was making sure that downtown property owners would be able to create apartments above their storefronts. And those apartments will be very important not only to provide affordable housing to folks, but also to create a synergy downtown by having more people live downtown.
Great, thank you. And John, last candidate for question number 5.
Yeah, so I agree with the Woodlands thing. I think partnerships are very valuable. Woodlands, the Housing Authority, and I'm going to mention something here that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I could be completely wrong with how I'm saying this, but I would have liked to have seen affordable housing project in the TIF application. I'm not exactly sure if affordable housing or something, or a partnership with the Housing Authority or Woodlands would be possible with TIF funding, but ultimately it would have to be within the TIF district. But infrastructure is one of the things that TIF funds can be used for. But what does that allude, like? Can affordable housing be added to that? If so, it would have been really awesome to see that. And I'm not downgrading any of the projects that were on there. I think that's huge, and I think that's going to propel Elkins into the future. But ultimately, that's also a long-term goal. And I think right now, and I think Burley may have mentioned it, but affordable housing is not something just specific to Elkins. I mean, the state of West Virginia housing is just ridiculous right now. And it also goes across the country. But that's something that I would have liked to have seen. If it's not available, surely there's grant funding out there somewhere where the city of Elkins can partner with Woodlands or the Housing Authority to make this happen. Ultimately, this is definitely needed in our area, and I would fully support that 100%.
Question 6, and Burley, I think we're going to start with you on this one. What role should City Council play in encouraging neighborhood revitalization and blight reduction?
It's hard for City Council to dictate what someone is going to do with their front yard to make it look better. However, through my neighborhood, it starts with one person. You do landscaping, and the next person says, what can I do? And the next person says, what can I do? When we look at the, overall revitalization of the neighborhoods, what does our walkability look like? Is it safe to cross the street? Those are things that we need to take a look at as a city as a whole. Most of our sidewalks are not able to be transversed when it's dark outside because of the large trees that were planted, and I love trees because I plant them all the time. But we need to look at that and what type of trees we're planting and what does it look like going forward and how are we going to combat problems of aging infrastructure like roads and sidewalks and how are we going to revitalize those. When we're talking about blight reductions, I think our city has done an amazing job. They have applied for funding to take down those dilapidated homes that cause or present hazards to the citizens that walk by them on a daily basis. Not only does it provide that danger, but it also gives the ability for people to go in and drug use, other things that are happening. And unfortunately, like we talked about in River Street, where people die in fires in houses that aren't safe to be in. So I think the city is doing a phenomenal job at applying for grants and for making sure that the city is a safe place when we are looking at aging homes.
Nancy.
Okay. First of all, the person that I couldn't remember the name was T.R. Whiteman, who built like over 100 houses and buildings in the city of Elkins. So let me get that out. I think the council plays a really, really important role in the issue of neighborhood blight and encouraging neighborhood revitalization. We have an exceptional zoning ordinance that really looks at what people are doing with their properties. Our code enforcement officer makes sure that a lot of the ordinances dealing with vacant properties, which is what you alluded to, we're had problems with people just not being in their houses, and then people come in. Now we are enforcing that ordinance, and we are seeing a good result of that. And people are starting to assess, do I want to keep paying the fine for having a vacant property, or not a fine, an assessment on having a vacant property, or am I going to unload it in some way? The dilapidated properties program has been phenomenal, in our code enforcement officer and our city attorney. The paperwork that has to go through for each one of those properties is extraordinary. And so every time that we can take one of those down is significant. And we do have, once again, we do have the ability to respond to constituent concerns. And I get those calls all the time about neighbors not taking care of their property. Is there some sort of regulation that deals not only with high grass but accumulated trash? And there is. It's the nuisance property ordinance. So I encourage people to pick up the phone. There's also a way that you can do it on the website as well.
Great, thank you. And John, question number 6.
Yeah, sure. So I can't remember what the code would be for it, but especially where I live, Diamond Street has had a reputation in the past of being a high foot traffic area for drugs and everything else like that. When the ordinance went into place to hold landlords accountable for excess police presence, that really cleaned up a lot of this city. So I applaud that. I think it's very valuable, and I hope it continues. Another thing that I would really want to see continued is the funding made available for tearing down dilapidated structures. I think that's huge. I know up there there was a fire that killed a lady from a drug deal, and ultimately that house was tore down. And I mean, it stood there for a few years, but when the city finally got the funding to do it, that was one of the first ones demolished, and that was amazing to see. But ever since then, ever since multiple things happening, Diamond Street has cleaned up a lot. Now, one of the ongoing issues that we're seeing as far as revitalization is concerned is not only with the floodwaters, but ultimately, if anybody would like to take a stroll up Diamond Street, look at the sidewalks. The sidewalks are eroding from water damage, and my sidewalk in particular, the entire span of it, somebody could walk down that street, trip and fall, and I get a lawsuit for it, for something that's not even my fault. So ultimately, I say that to say this: if we want to invest in Elkins, we have to show that we are invested in our neighborhoods, and I think that would be something that would be great.
And Dave, last candidate for question 6.
Yes, sir. Since I've been on council, I have really been a driver for this revitalization work, and I claim it. It falls under the Public Safety Committee, which I chair, and the city is the driver for this work in the broader community. I pushed for a larger budget item for demos in the first place. We did accomplish that, but most recently, the DEP has made grants available. Our first grant from them for demos was $300,000, and it was so well used that we are considered a model program in Charleston in that regard. We currently have a $195,000 grant following on that $300,000 that we are going to use for the demolition of the Four Seasons. And any leftover from that, when the Four Seasons is down and done, our team has already done all the groundwork to move on to other demos. They're not as significant, if you will, as the Four Seasons. And the team really is all of the work I've spoken of, whether it's the demos that we've done, and we have done a lot. And that's where the infill development becomes so important, and looking at solutions for affordable housing. But all of our team are experts in their fields, and I have to respect them. Council needs to respect them, and we do. They're experts in their fields, and they lay the foundation upon which we make our decisions after working it out together as a council, make the best decision we can for this city. And that is certainly true in this regard. But we are making great headway on revitalization. It's not just demos, it's new construction going in. Private contractors don't want to do it. We've had no inquiries. It's woodlands.
Thank you. And our final question, and Nancy, we'll begin with you, and this is the longest question, so I can repeat it if necessary. Elkins has access to tax increment fund, TIF funds, to support development within designated areas. How do you believe these funds should be prioritized and invested to most effectively benefit the city as a whole, not just today, but for long-term community impact?
Okay, well, I thought I would just mention what the 5 priorities that have already been associated with the TIF are the riverfront development, the recreational trail system, downtown streetscaping, the Elkins Rail Yard Development Project, and the Randolph County Industrial Park. And I've asked how it should be prioritized, and that's really difficult. But the thing that I've been most involved with throughout almost all my years here in Elkins is downtown streetscaping, active with Main Street, active with the Planning Commission, active with so many committees that have looked at this. And I have on my desk a 2008 strategic plan that WVU did. And so I would love to finally see this become reality. And unfortunately, due to a change in administration on the federal level, we lost a huge grant, congressionally directed grant of $150,000 that we would have been able to use for the streetscape project. And one thing I think it's important for people to realize is that if that goes well, if we have a really active downtown, that money can then be utilized for other projects throughout the town. And the TIF funds also meant the reason that we applied for it. It helps create jobs. It helps create opportunities for fixing infrastructure. The streetscape program had a lot, while not adding more burden on our taxpayers. And small towns are finding out that our residents' income is not going up at the same rate as our needs to improve our town, the cost of infrastructure and everything like that. The rates keep going up.
Thank you.
Wah.
You could talk
John?
about this one for hours.
Yes.
John, question number 7, please.
Boy, what a controversial topic, huh? So I love this idea. I really do. Elkins had the opportunity and they seized it. That's phenomenal. I think it's great. A lot of these projects are gonna really put Elkins on the map. Of course, I believe a couple of them are now short-term rather than long-term, and that's really good to see that moving forward. What I really would have liked to have seen as far as prioritization is issues that could be addressed quickly rather than later, as far as infrastructure or something like that. Again, it goes along with, you repair the necessary infrastructure, businesses will follow. I do believe in that. Going back to my previous comments, I do think that it would have been a great opportunity not only to upgrade city infrastructure, but to partner with local organizations for affordable housing. So I think those seem to be a bigger priority in my eyes, but that's not also downplaying what's on this list, because I think they're very valuable assets to the city. But that's my thoughts on that.
Great, thank you. And Dave?
Okay. As has been noted, the primary reason for creating the TIF district was to support development within that TIF district area. And I think y'all have really hit on things. I'm fascinated by your question about, is there any way that we could possibly use TIF funds at some point for affordable housing? I think that's worth exploring. I do not know. I would defer to our city clerk, who has the TIF application burned into the front of his brain. We've got a really good 4-member board who are looking at this. Once again, my highest priority with this really has to do with infrastructure. It was noted just a couple weeks ago that within a mile of Town Square in Elkins, there's $100 million of new development projects going forward. What that tells me is that even without TIF right now, but we're gonna need it because I mean, see it coming, that the city has done an incredibly good job. That companies and individuals would see this as such a hospitable place in any number of ways, that they would make the decision to invest $100 million in the city. And that speaks well, because my hope is that that will bring up pay scales, as we've all, we know that's gotta happen. People's pay levels have been dropping behind the cost of living so badly, and have been for some years. So we will continue with this. I think that the projects they've lined out are decent. And we're just gonna have to see where those will go once we have sufficient balance in the fund to act, which we do not now.
And finally, Burley, if you'll wrap us up with.
Of course, it's my pleasure. So I believe that the city was smart in strategically looking at where our TIF was to be applied. As Nancy has stated, we are building from the city, or we want to build from city out, because we want to attract people to come down to the city, and we want to attract those that come to ride the train, those that come to visit us, because of all the natural resources and the beauty that we have, that Elkins has, that not everybody does. But if they come to a city square or a city middle of town and they see a development that is not thriving, or it's not appealing to the eye, they're going to look somewhere that gives them that opportunity. And I think with this, the streetscape plan that we had done, we were able to see where this had made a major difference in the development of the overall city, not just in the local downtown. But in order for us to move forward, we have to pick a starting point. And we can't continue to say, we'll look at that, or this is where we want to start, but maybe not. We need to make a decision as a city, as citizens of Elkins, on where we want our legacy to start, not where we want it to end. So I think by this TIF being enacted and us starting with 3rd Street and then moving out to support all of our citizens is one of the best things that City Council and the City of Elkins could have ever done.
Thank you to all of you. Please join me in thanking them for your time. If you have never been in politics, I was for a brief time in Pennsylvania. I can't say thank you enough to all 4 of you for the time, for your sacrifice. Being in politics is not a fun world always to live in. There's a lot of challenges, and I appreciate all of your efforts. We're going to move into a time called speed dating, and what that's going to allow is for you to get some cookies and water, but also to individually meet each of the candidates, have a chance to ask them a question or two, and then about every 5 minutes you may hear a sound. That means to move on to another candidate and talk with them. And again, thank you to you 4 for coming. I appreciate, honestly, your willingness to stick to the time schedule. If we could pass that all the way up to the levels of government beyond us, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you also, all of you, for coming tonight, and those of you that joined us on the live stream.